the looming showdown between the Kenyan opposition and ruling party over election board appointments. People trapped by Hurricane Harvey venture out to find gas and groceries, with mixed results. And the coolest gadgets on display at the IFA Technology Fair in Berlin. Africa 54 starts right now.
Good evening, I'm Esther Githui. You at Info Vincent Makori. This is Africa 54. A weekend fire has killed 9 students at a girls' boarding school in Kenya. Kenya's education minister said on Monday that arson is to blame for Saturday's blaze in Nairobi. In a televised press conference, Fred Matiang'i announced that in the past there had been similar attacks on other schools across the country, including the cities of Mombasa and Kisumu. Matiang'i says 10 girls were also injured during the fire at Moi Girls' School in the capital. The minister also said some arson attacks had been related to fights over staff appointments in schools where senior positions can bring financial rewards.
It was very sad. 10 of you were injured. They are admitted in hospital. 2 of them are a bit critical. The other 8, we have been assured by the doctors, are out of danger. We may actually have lost some of your colleagues in that fire. We are taking account of all of you, especially those who are sleeping in that dormitory, before we can know what exactly happened, but we have lost some of your colleagues.
Now, according to the Twitter feed of Kenya's Red Cross, 3 other school fires were reported around the nation on Monday. Now, Kenya's government appears headed for a showdown with the opposition after a presidential spokesman said Monday it will not replace the election board ahead of the new election ordered by the Supreme Court, now officially scheduled for October 17th, according to Twitter page of the Electoral Commission. On Friday, the court annulled President Uhuru Kenyatta's 1.4 million vote victory in the August 8th presidential election. The court said the Electoral Commission board had not followed proper procedures and ordered it to hold new elections within 60 days, but did not stipulate any personnel changes. Opposition leader Raila Odinga welcomed the court's judgment, but called for senior officials at the election board to resign and face possible prosecution. Both Odinga and Kenyatta had reaction to this latest election twist.
It is now also clear that the CEO, Elsa Chiloba, Directors Immaculate Kasait, Commissioner in charge of ICT, Professor Abdi Yakub Gulie, Head of Legal Affairs, Praxidis Tororei, Mrs. Betty Nyabuto of Operations, and John Muhati of IT were co-conspirators with these criminals. They must face criminal prosecution.
If you have accepted all the rest of the results, let us accept the ruling. Maraga, don't interfere. And don't think that because our friends shout and we keep quiet, that we are scared of you. No, we are not. We are not. You've done your ruling, we have respected it. Let IEBC do their job. Let them declare the date. And Raila, let us meet at the ballot.
Now, a spokesman for both Kenyatta and the election board rejected the idea of changing the entire board. Some Kenyans celebrated the ruling, saying it reduced the potential for a repeat of the kind of violence that followed a disputed 2007 presidential election, in which more than 1,200 people were killed. Now, for more perspective on Kenya's challenging political situation, I am joined by James Gundi, adjunct professor at Georgetown University and a native of Kenya. Professor, welcome again to Africa 54.
Thank you, Esther.
Now, a very heated war of words between Raila Odinga and President Kenyatta. And just after the announcement of the Supreme Court, what do you expect to see in the coming days of the campaigns?
A bare knuckles fight. I think we are going to see an ugly fight. We already have started seeing the rhetoric, but I think the important thing is we need to separate the rhetoric, which is political. We expect politicians to make noise. And what is consequential? And I think what is consequential is to have these two leaders demonstrate leadership, because what they say is going to make a huge difference. So hopefully they are going to fight, as politicians do, but let it be a war of words. Hopefully at the end of the day, they will both be able to present their positions in terms of policy, in terms of what they want to do should they be declared winner in the next round.
Now, this war of words looks very emotional as well. It's very, they are so serious about each other. They look like they're so angry with each other. But the big question is, who is going to oversee the runoff elections? Given that Odinga is asking for the senior officials of IEBC to be prosecuted, and Kenyatta says, no, the IEBC will stay on and oversee the October 17th election.
I think what we are seeing is both sides trying to extract as much concession before the election as possible. So Raila, of course, would want to push for a complete disbandment of the Electoral Commission. I also believe he knows that is possibly not going to happen. But he has to start on a high mark if he's going to get some concession. I think at the end of the day, we all would agree that if an overseer did not perform well, there is reason to make some changes. The question is, do we need a total disbandment of the IEBC, or should we allow some changes that the chairman says he's going to effect?
Mr. Gundi, Kenyatta has also made a very tough reference to the Supreme Court Justice, Justice Maraga. And I'm wondering, what's your reaction to that?
I think it's not helpful. I think the president stands for more than just being the presidential candidate of the Jubilee coalition. The president is the unifying factor in the country. He's a symbol of unity in the country. He also embodies the rule of law. And I think the problem is when Kenyans start to see the decision by the Supreme Court as a victory for Raila and a loss for Uhuru Kenyatta, we miss the point. If we looked at it as victory for democracy and the rule of law, then we would be celebrating and saying, let's now go to the next stage, because we have laws that govern such decisions. And once the decisions have been made, what follows? If we took that frame of mind, we would not be seeing the kind of rhetoric where the president is insulting members of the court. That does not unify the country.
Now, very briefly, who should be voting this time around? Can there be new registered voters, or only those who were registered before?
I mean, I think at this point it's a little bit too late to start voter registration. The Kenyan way of registering voters is not, is not very advanced to the point where anyone who turns 18 today gets a voter card. So I would say, rather than throwing in a lot of other things that may complicate issues, we should just be happy with the voter registration as it is, or the register as it stands, and allow those who voted or those who could vote on August 8th be the people who still go back to the polling stations.
Mr. Gundi, thank you very much. James Gundi is an adjunct professor at Georgetown University here in Washington, D.C., and a native of Kenya. In Burundi on Monday, a United Nations Commission of Inquiry says officials at the highest level should be held accountable for crimes against humanity committed in Burundi since April 2015. It also says a list of suspects has been compiled. The commission says there are reasonable grounds to believe that crimes against humanity had been committed when President Pierre Nkurunziza said he would run for a new term in office, triggering the nation's spiral into chaos and violence. A government crackdown on protests followed the ensuing upheaval sparked a food crisis and the exodus of over 400,000 refugees. According to the commission, the intelligence service, the police and the army are widely responsible for these crimes. So far, the Burundian government is refusing to cooperate with the commission. South Africa, China, Brazil, Russia and India, otherwise known as the BRICS, or emerging economies are currently meeting in China. The host nation has kick-started the group with a fresh injection of funding as it pledges to fight protectionism. Most of China's $80 million offering is headed towards an economic and technology development plan, while the rest is slated to the group's new development bank. An official declaration states that BRICS countries will continue to firmly oppose protectionism as they are committed to an open and inclusive multilateral trading system. Next year, South Africa is expected to take over the presidency of the BRICS summit. Now to the crisis on the Korean Peninsula. The world is pondering how to respond to North Korea's latest nuclear test on Sunday, its sixth and most powerful since 2006. Pyongyang has defied all international warnings by conducting the test despite a new set of United Nations sanctions, also approved by China, North Korea's closest and most powerful ally. VOA's Latza Hoke reports.
The bomb used in North Korea's test Sunday sent tremors across the region that were more powerful than Pyongyang's previous tests. The international community is debating what can be done to stop North Korea's defiance.
The Security Council has dealt with many sanctions, and the sanctions seems to not be stopping the DPRK from going beyond the acceptable in terms of their nuclear weapon program. Where do we go? It's probably $1 million question.
Trump has asked China to use its influence on Pyongyang to curb its nuclear ambitions. But on Sunday, he tweeted that China has had little success and that North Korea is becoming an embarrassment for Beijing. He said that one option he is considering is stopping trade with all countries that do business with North Korea. That would certainly include China, North Korea's closest ally and its biggest trade partner. An analyst in Beijing said North Korea's test is driving a wedge between China and the United States and promoting the division in South Korean society. He said the United States has contributed to the tensions.
America, by deploying the THAAD in South Korea, Chinese people, Chinese government, they think the strategic balance was broken. And also in this process, South Korea is sided with America. It naturally also widened the distance between China and South Korea. Naturally, it also widened the distance between China and America. So for North Korea, it's a very strategic case.
The Chinese analyst says North Korea is desperate to develop nuclear weapons because it feels it is surrounded by enemies. He says the United States, Japan and South Korea need to step up the dialogue with Pyongyang and work to reduce North Korea's security concerns. Trump tweeted that appeasement does not work with North Korea and said he would discuss other options with his military officials. Most Western leaders say there is no military option for the Korean Peninsula.
The distance between North Korea and Seoul is very, very small. They could basically vaporize large parts of the South Korean population, even with conventional weapons. So, that's not really very easy to threaten and to deliver.
European Union leaders are calling for tougher economic sanctions against Pyongyang and say that China and Russia, as its biggest trade partners, have the most responsibility in making sure they are enforced. Zlatica Hoke, VOA News, Washington.
We want to know what you think about Africa 54 and the stories we cover. Join the conversation on Facebook. The address is Africa 54. We're also streaming our show live on Facebook. So check us out and share our show with your friends. Also check out our headlines 24/7 on voaafrica.com. Coming up, the hunt for groceries and gas in post-Hurricane Harvey, Houston. Stay with us.
I wanted to present music and a side of American culture that is most important to me, that is a part of who I am. They're going to get some incredible performances. That's one of the things I love, bringing these artists in so you can get to see them do what they do. It's soul music, and that's what music is. It's that which comes from the soul.
In the aftermath of Hurricane Harvey, flood waters are still high in some Houston, Texas neighborhood near dams, but the water is receding in much of the city. As more roads dry out and become passable again, people who are trapped at home during the hurricane are starting to leave their homes in search of gas and groceries. What residents are able to find depends on where they live. Here's VOA's Elizabeth Lee.
In this largely immigrant neighborhood in southwest Houston, the name of this grocery store, Welcome, has new meaning after Hurricane Harvey devastated Houston.
It's my first time out and saw that a lot of roads are passable again.
This Chinese grocery store closed for only a day during the worst of the storm. Its shipments of food have been coming in from California and New York.
Do not expect the hurricane would be so bad. Many of the customers need a lot of items. Many American grocery stores are not open.
It's been almost a week since Hurricane Harvey came through Houston, and for a lot of these shoppers, the things they need most are fresh fruits and vegetables and meat.
We decided to come to the Asian store to get some fish and get some potato grains. We eat a lot of food that the Asians eat, so we always come to shop here.
George Colley from Liberia says his family is one of the lucky ones.
I know further down there were a lot of houses that was destroyed from the storm. And then water went into people's houses, but mine was safe.
There are areas of Houston that the flooding has cut off, making roads impassable and leading to shortages in gasoline and food items. In some grocery stores that are busy with customers, there are signs the city is struggling to get back on its feet, as seen in this photo of a bread shortage at a store called Sam's Club, taken by a customer. And that's not the only store with a bread shortage. Fears of polluted drinking water mean shoppers are also stocking up on bottled water until the city recovers. Sarita Sapota from Nepal is glad she is no longer confined to her home.
We had to stay home for 3 days. We could not go to work, and all of the daily activities were canceled. Today is the first time we were out after the flooding.
But this part of southwest Houston was spared from the worst of the hurricane.
I'm really happy nothing has happened to Chinatown and everyone can come out and shop.
I think things are becoming to come to normal, and this is what we all are praying for, so that life can come back with love. Houston, we are Houstonians.
These Houstonians say they need some sense of normalcy after surviving such a traumatic natural disaster. But it will take weeks and even months before the city is truly back to normal. Elizabeth Lee, VOA News, Houston.
Now, some energy like solar and wind is renewable. Other sources of power are recyclable. Faith Lapidus tells us how old tires and congealed fat are generating interest and energy.
Millions of discarded tires clog the world's landfills, never decomposing. Unless they are shredded into strips and fed into this machine built by a group of engineering students in Cairo. A blast of fire to heat the container and start the evaporation process, and the tires are transformed into diesel oil and black carbon.
We use diesel oil as an alternative to gas oil in cement or brick factories. We use the carbon or black coal in the production of ink or as a raw material in the production of tires all over again.
It took the team of 12 students 3 months to design the device as a graduation project and another 7 months to build it. They're now searching for investors to scale up their project. Another recycled energy effort focuses on the congealed grease, fat, and other waste clogging sewers and water treatment plants around the world.
Anything with fat that's gone off and rancid and is going to go to landfill, we can now handle that, and we can turn it into energy, into transport energy, and into fuels for trucks and buses.
Argent Energy in Britain uses a multi-step process to turn degraded, horrible, smelly raw materials into high-quality biodiesel. First, the solids are filtered from the wastewater. Then a chemical catalyst transforms the remaining oil-based material into something that can be separated from the water and distilled into biodiesel.
What we do with it now is we will blend it with normal diesel and supply it to bus companies around the country as a sustainable road fuel.
So everyone is a winner in these efforts. The companies doing the recycling, the businesses that use the transformed materials, and the environment. I'm Faith Lapidus, VOA News.
It's time now for a short break. Still to come on Africa 54, the most cutting-edge additions to the Internet of Things. We'll be right back.
Concernant maintenant la question des crimes de droit international, la Commission, au terme de ses enquêtes, a estimé qu'il y avait des motifs raisonnables de croire.
Na vilevile tumesema huwezi kulazimisha Wakenya
Ma visite s'inscrit dans la dynamique qui a été initiée à la scène Synchro.
Welcome back to Africa 54. Here's what's trending. Gadgets with voice activation and with voice assistant are the hot trend at this year's IFA Germany's technology marketplace. Companies are launching speakers, apps, thermostats, and headphones that work with Amazon's Alexa or Google's Assistant. According to a report by eMarketers, a market research company, 35 million people in the U.S. will use a voice-activated assistant device, such as the Amazon Echo or Google Home in 2017. That is an increase by 129% from last year. Amazon Echo has 70% of the market share, while Google Home trails with 24%. Next up, it might not be the smartest robot on show at IFA, but that doesn't mean it's not useful. The Lumigent robotic smart desk lamp is intended to aid desk workers, ensuring that perfect light conditions can be achieved just through the click of an app or simple voice command. The lamp can move onto various positions and brightness can be carefully adjusted. Users can create certain presets, reading a book, for instance, and quickly call on them. The Amazon Alexa-enabled RoboLamp also has an 8-megapixel camera mounted on its head, meaning users can take pictures of documents, do video web calls, or record their motions. And finally, tone deaf, no rhythm? Don't let that stop you from making music. A new gadget is helping even the most musically challenged create sweet grooves. France-based Phonotonic hope to craft a new link between music and its body. It's done using a motion sensor that's connected to a smartphone app via Bluetooth. Slow movements create laid-back music. The faster users move their sensor, the more frantic the beats become. Phonotonic says over 1,000 possible mixes are included in the accompanying smartphone app. And that's what's trending today. Now, the Baltimore, Maryland Museum of Art has one of the most prominent collections of historic and contemporary African art in the United States. This year, it devoted an exhibition to artists from the continent who produce cutting-edge work. VOA's Zoe Liudaki takes us on a tour.
Race and privilege, colonialism and capitalism are among the realities negotiated by the artists in Shifting Views.
The works in this exhibition were brought together because they all address global capitalism and the migrancy that helps fuel it.
Shifting Views focuses on the work of 7 artists from Africa or of African descent who use their visual vocabulary to tackle social, economic, and racial disparities. Let's take a tour. First stop, Senan Ogunzeto, who was born in Ghana.
All facts have been changed to protect the ignorant. It's essentially about that first migrancy that fueled those first global economies. And that was the trade of humans from Africa into slavery in the Americas.
Ogunzeto is inspired by shipping records that refer to individuals as units of labor. A male between 15 and 25 years of age was considered a full unit.
Like they were torn from a shipping ledger. You can see the representations of the globe, for instance, that are divided as an accountant's grid. And they stretch out across oceans and across time to what was eventually 450 years of transporting humans into slavery to fuel the capitals of Europe and enrich the coffers of Paris and in Portugal and in London.
We move to the abstract drawings of international art star Julie Meretu, who was born in Ethiopia.
In this particular series, which is called Landscape Allegories, representations of fields and agrarian scenes. In each of her works, there are always what she calls dots, dashes, and squiggles. And those she calls characters. And of course, characters are human beings. So when you see a tiny dot or a tiny dash or a little squiggle, I'd like people to think about that as a human, somebody who's energizing this field, who's working on the farms in America. She identifies with individuals who rock the boat, as she says, especially now at this point in the super rapid evolution of a geopolitical global situation consumed by and with American capitalism.
William Kendridge is South African with an international career. His work often deals with the built-in inequality of apartheid. This piece is called Industry and Idleness.
Here we find the very people who are laboring to fuel South Africa's apartheid, to clean the tables of corporate offices at night, to try to find an avenue to make money in Johannesburg. Meanwhile, this industrious individual, the counterpart to this migrant, is the idle person. Each one of these works pits an industrious, hardworking migrant against somebody who's quite idle and enjoys all the privileges that apartheid afforded to white people.
Tomorrow, we will continue our tour of the exhibition Shifting Views. Zoe Liudecki, VOA News, Baltimore.
And that's our show for today. Be sure to watch Africa 54 on our website at voaafrica.com. For more news, tune in to VOA's evening radio show, Africa News Tonight, at 1800 UTC, and in the mornings to Daybreak Africa between 0300 and 0600 UTC, Monday through Friday. Thanks for watching, and good night from Washington.
Welcome to English in a Minute. A cannon used to be a common military weapon.
Loose cannon.
So, are Anna and Jonathan talking about an old battle?
Hey, I'm looking for someone to host a political event tomorrow night. Can your friend Sylvia help out?
Sylvia? She's a loose cannon. You never know what she's going to say. She could easily